Thanks very much for asking me to speak, Megan and Carrie. It's a real honor. So the title that I gave this little talk 3 weeks ago before I'd written it was The Unexpected and How We Choose to Respond. My talk today is actually about checklist, how we have checklist. So before I came to Guilford back in 1981, I was from Durham, North Carolina. I was very much kind of a young, innocent, romantic young man, country boy a little bit. And I came to Guilford knowing what I was going to do. I was pre-law. I was going to graduate from Guilford. I was going to go to UNC. I was going to become a lawyer. I was going to get a wife. I was going to get a house, get a dog, get a good job, become a partner, make a lot of money, retire, die, something like that. That was my checklist. I completely and totally had it figured out. Actually, what my talk today is about, it's about possibilities and about obliteration. So after my dad dropped me off in front of Milner, and I can still remember it, and he drove away, and I was like, why am I here? Why? After he dropped me off, when I was standing outside of Milner back in 1981, I started thinking about that checklist, and I knew that all I had to do was just fulfill it and live my life. But from the very start at Guilford, I found that I was not going to be dealing with that same checklist. And many of the reasons were, as like Laura said, IDS. I had Richie Zwigenhoff. I remember Henry Hood, a history teacher, once said, IDS, interdisciplinary studies, was a fabulous opportunity for freshmen to be presented with all the problems of the world, to have us flounder in them, to have us attempt to answer them, and then they were like, okay, now you can go home, everybody. Nobody knows the answers. Let's take a winter break. Another great class was chemistry. I tried and tried. I think I studied 6 hours every night with chemistry. Dr. Bemfee and his partner. I even took it a second semester. It did not matter how hard I studied. I could only do so well, and yet the professors refused to give me good grades. They refused to, no matter how many times I went and met with them, they weren't going to give me anything. I had to earn it on my own. I wish he was here. I think he's going to be here soon, Steve Saltzgiver, but I had Dr. Jane Bingle Gutzel. And what was fabulous about that experience was I wrote this paper, and in the textbook that we all had, it was a troubadour poem, and it's a man and a woman, and they're going back and forth, and the quotation mark was dropped at the end of a stanza. For you English people, you know what I'm talking about. And so I made this argument that it was actually a sustained dialogue from one character, and we all knew it wasn't. And Jane and I, we went back and forth. I had to go meet with her and everything. And Steve was my reader, and he was like, this is not going to be good. And it wasn't good. I got a deal in the paper. But I ended up loving Jane Bingle. We're still lifetime friends. Steve Saltzgiver, maybe not so much. But, and then, of course, American Romanticism, which, if my wife was here, that's where we met in American Romanticism. And that's where I was exposed to Emerson, Thoreau, Hawthorne, Whitman, Melville. Can I use profanity or not? Okay, so listen, in class, anybody who had Dick Morton, you would know that we would ask these questions, and we would be trying to figure this out, and we would read and read, and his response would be, he'd be like, it's the whale, God damn it, it's the whale. And we'd be like, what does that mean? And we'd go to the library, and we'd try to figure it out, and some people dropped out of the class, and some of us would stand out there and try to preach it, and we tried to believe in it. But, I mean, ultimately what I'm trying to say is that when I came here, that was the obliteration of that first checklist. That I was not going to be doing those things. And then I was like, I want to be an English major. Oh, I want to be a history major. I want to minored in medieval study. That helped out a lot. But I think what happens here at Guilford is this, is that we are shown, or you are now, if you're currently a student, you're shown the possibilities. So from checklists to possibilities. And nobody at Guilford is standing there telling you this is the answer. Nobody at Guilford writes the answer on the board and you scribble it down. That's not who Guilford is. It's not SparkNotes. It's not this is the theme, this is the plot, or anything like that. It's like we have to figure it out ourselves. And I think that's a beautiful gift or a skill to have, this idea that you can look and realize there are multiple opportunities, there are multiple possibilities, and there's not just one little checklist that you tick through. So, this talk today, actually, sorry guys, the talk today really is about dealing with the unexpected. So when I graduated from Guilford, Megan has been great through this whole thing. She keeps emailing me and saying, do you have any, like, pictures? Okay, I got to really speed it up. Do you have any pictures or anything? So I was going to show this picture of when I first came to Guilford, and I was all clean cut and prep and all this kind of stuff. And then I was going to show this other picture where I had this, like, huge kind of, a lot of hair, a lot of curls, a lot of beard and everything. So when I left Guilford, I decided I was not going to use my creativity or my skills in any way to support the machine or the system, as the very eloquent, dynamic young woman who spoke before me said. And in place of that, I just kind of wandered a little bit. So I was a carpenter's apprentice, a bicycle messenger, a cook, a dishwasher, many, many different things for about 4 years until this gentleman started telling me how to sweep. And I was like, that's it. I went back to my house. My mom helped me write some letters. And then I got a teaching position. And that's really where I found my passion. And I kind of finally found a place for my skills. I'm just trying to make my time here. So I got a job up in, sorry about that. I got a job, Litchfield, Connecticut. I started working one-on-one with kids who were, LD. And then after doing that for 4 years, I decided I went to Boston, studied some, and then I applied to, actually went down to University of South Carolina, excellent program, got a master's in English and a master's in Library and Information Science. At that point, I realized that, so this is the part where I respond. So I was without a checklist. I was the obliterated checklist. I was realizing there are many, many different possibilities. And so I landed this job in Abington, just outside of, or Jenkintown, just outside of Philadelphia, where, as it turned out, Gia, another class of 85 person, lived right in the neighborhood. And so for 15 years, I had this fabulous experience where I was an English teacher, taught a lot of different things. My wife has a great job. She's an OBGYN nurse practitioner. She's at Einstein. My daughter's still at the school that I was at. And my son, 14, Ben, everybody's doing great. And we really found a home. But what this talk really is about, I'm going to change the title again, it's about endurance. And what I realized was I started thinking like 12 years, 13 years, 14, 15. I love my colleagues. I love my students. But I started saying to myself, I'm not sure I can read another thesis statement about the Scarlet Letter. I'm not sure that I can teach The Great Gatsby again. I know it sounds crazy because there's a part of me that thinks I still can. But and I started thinking that, oh, hey, there's Abby. One of my old students is right there. So let me try to get back on track here. Wait a second. Abby, you totally pulled me off. That's it. Right. So I started thinking to myself this. It was like 15 fabulous years back at the school we were at. And, but then I started thinking like this. I only have, I've got to drive. It's 7 minutes each way. I'm going to keep teaching these books. Just year after year. And all I have to do is just wait another 17 years, and then I can retire. And what I realized was I had another checklist. I had replaced my pre-law, being a lawyer checklist with this other checklist of being this English teacher at a fabulous friend's school. So what I did was, in the middle of July, one summer, I just decided to resign. And my wife totally supported me, but I had to do something different. And in my mind, what I decided is that it was this ability to see possibilities and to get rid of that checklist that made it possible for me. And I credit that to Guilford. So what I did was I started working with career counselors, and I was like thinking about becoming a notary. If you know Wawa, I was going to work at Wawa. I was thinking about doing anything that was for profit. So I did that for about half a year, started bartending, started working for a caterer. I did a little UPS work. I even started doing grounds crew stuff with Little League. Even this last summer, I was an aquatics director. I'd never done that before. And I started doing all these different things, and there it is again. It's just this notion of possibilities. Ultimately, I did decide that none of the jobs that these career counselors suggested to me made sense to me because they just didn't feel like they were worth it because I wanted to be teaching students. So I'm back teaching again. I got a great job, different school, different landscape. Things are spread out. Students are a little tiny bit different. Faculty's very nice and everything. I'm with the clock here. So I think, I'll just wrap it up, but I think ultimately what I'm trying to say is that life is not about checklists. And maybe Abby remembers me saying this in class at some point, that we can't just like set it out and we can't just have a plan. We've got to be able to be flexible. We've got to be able to adapt to things. And I think that Guilford College is a fabulous place to do that. And one thing that I just noticed real fast is that we have been to many different colleges recently with Hannah looking, and you walk around and everybody's got the swag on, this, that, and the other. But at Guilford, you don't see that. And it's like, I think the reason why is because you don't, we're not walking away from here, you're a Harvard man, a Yale woman, you're Michigan this or Pitt that or whatever it is. It's just like, I'm Don Kaplan. Yeah, I studied at Guilford College, and this place just made me a better me. And it made me sharper, stronger, more focused. So thanks again for having me speak, and thank you very much, folks.